the vision and wisdom of Dr. Warda Gimba, a club that would cater to the compounding quality research outputs and student researchers, was founded on the 22nd day of April, year 2015. Dr. Gimba, the research and thesis coordinator of the College of Education main campus, spearheaded the organization with its initial members, composed of students who were enrolled in her methods of research courses during the second semester class of academic year 2015 to 2016. The organization was then officially named the Young Researchers Club, or also known as YRC.
Young scholars in the community of learning and be able to contribute in the growing research enthusiast.
To motivate and inspire undergraduates to become independent thinkers by enhancing their critical thinking skills through research and paper critiquing.
To expose undergraduates with innovative and quality researches through various activities and programs.
To inculcate the value and imperatives of research in the 21st century education.
To prepare the young researchers for the graduate program.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to begin, let us remind you with our house rules for event. Please join the event 10 minutes earlier of the target time at Zoom. Use your full name upon joining Zoom for proper identification. Mute your microphone upon joining to prevent unnecessary noise. Turn off your cameras during the event.
Turn off your cameras during the event. Zoom will be locked the moment the event starts. In case of internet disconnection, participants can still continue watching the event via FB live stream. For any query, you may share or connect your questions in the chat box at Zoom or comment section at Facebook Live during the open forum. We would like to extend our warmest welcome and gratitude for everyone for being with us today. On behalf of the Young Researchers Club, we would like to welcome you all to the second virtual webinar lecture series of the YRC with the topic Trends and Best Practices in Writing and Publishing Scientific Articles for International Publication, with the theme Recultivating Enthusiasm for Research Learning in the New Normal. I am Fatima Haimadiso, your Masters of Ceremony. To formally start the program, let us solemnize our inner self by having a 2-minute silent prayer to be followed by the virtual singing of the national anthem. Ato, baka FB live ka? Sungkarang ko na sa FB na YRC na ilaya nga.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, ay masasinanganan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang binirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manluluping, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mo pagaw, ay hinagang tula, kawit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang lang matawag mo'y tagumpay na nagtitingin, ang bituin at karoon niya kailan ang ay di magtitingin. Lumanang araw ng warhabit pagsingka, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga akin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
At this juncture, introduce to you our resource speaker. He finished his Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English as magna cum laude and College of Education batch valedictorian. He also earned his Master of Arts in English Language Teaching, thesis writing stage, he was also invited in various research seminars and trainings as speaker. Moreover, he also published researches and served as peer reviewer in various international journals. And currently, a special assistant in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research Extension and Development. One of the instructors in English department at the College of Social Sciences and Humanities, and a managing editor in the ASEAN Journal of Science and Technology. A member of MSU Intellectual Gentlemen. Without further ado, please a virtual round of applause, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, po, sir.
All right. So I would like to greet everybody a pleasant afternoon and welcome to the second webinar of the Young Researchers Club. And I really like the theme. No, the theme says recultivating enthusiasm in research learning, the new normal. Because despite our situation today, still we are conducting this kind of event, so that research learning won't stop, despite our amid the pandemic. All right. So I'll start screen sharing. Okay. All right, is my PowerPoint visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so this afternoon I will be discussing trends and best practices in writing scientific articles for international publication. And before I begin, I'd like to share some historical background regarding this topic. Last December 2019, I attended a training on this in Cebu City, and the things I learned in that training will be the things that I will share with you this afternoon. Okay, but due to limited time, there will be some omissions na gagawin natin because this is only a lecture. Okay, supposedly this has a workshop component, no? Kasi mas maganda sana kung meron tayong workshop na gagawin. However, wala tayong time, and there will also be no demonstration because again our time is limited. So this afternoon, our objectives will be to impart a working knowledge of the culture of scientific writing of high impact publications, and to discuss trends in scientific writing adapted by high impact publications such as the Web of Science. That's actually the Thomson Reuters database, and Scopus by Elsevier database. And finally, to learn from experiences of acceptance and rejection of articles from high impact index journals. So aside from the things I learned from the training, I will also be sharing with my experiences in publishing articles in international journals. So there will be four major contents that I will be discussing this afternoon. First is the standards of high impact journals. Second is the anatomy of well-written publishable paper. Third is the new technologies as aid in determining quality of scientific papers. And fourth will be the critical causes of rejection of scientific papers. So let's begin. So here are the standards of high impact journals such as Scopus and Web of Science, as which we will be using as framework for determining quality of publishable paper. So first of all, high impact journals are very conscious about the scope of our paper na sinasubmit natin sa kanila. So accordingly, the wider the scope, the higher the acceptance value. So if your scope is global, yan talaga, no, may pinakamalaking chance na ma-accept for publication. And then followed by continental, and then ASEAN, and then, well, sa national, and then down to the local level. However, there are some limitations, no, kasi nga, not everyone can afford to conduct researches with a global scope, continental, or even kahit ASEAN, or even national, especially if you are an undergraduate student yet. Okay, so if your scope is local, you can analyze your data using Philippine, ASEAN, continental, and global perspectives. So you have to include in your paper a clear explanation as to why your findings are still relevant. No? Kahit local ang setting, you have to tell them, no? You have to prove to them that the scope of your paper and the relevance of your findings, no? the level of significance can still be considered in the national, regional, continental, and global perspectives. All right. Next, the quality of research accordingly begins with a list of references. So this is part of the scope. In the current trends, no, of writing scientific articles, especially for international publication, and even not for international publication, kailangan ang references natin include it will include studies, no, literatures coming from different countries. Okay? If possible nga daw, all 6 continents, no? Well, except Antarctica kasi wala namang mga tao dun. So, kung pwede sa 6 continents, no? May ma-include ka sa references mo. Okay? Because it will also prove that you are a well-read researcher. How can we do that? Because not everybody has access to research databases kasi ngayong iba may payment. You can only access the title and the abstract. So the content, the full content is not accessible. So it should be that our libraries have subscriptions on high impact journals, which is also present naman sa Mindanao State University. Kaya lang, yun na nga, there are still improvements to do. So we have to make sure, no, we have to ensure, and I'm sure that the university is doing its best, no, that our library will have subscriptions on high impact journals. If you don't have subscriptions, no, sa mga high impact journals, pwede naman siguro, pwede meron ikaw personal, no, if you can afford, kasi somehow it's quite expensive, no? Or sa college ba kaya, no? You can also katawag nito journals. So Scopus and Web of Science publications are considered in the QS ranking. So the international ranking of world universities. And alam naman natin that this is one, not only one, no, but actually tawag nito parang determinant, no, of quality university tsaka quality of researches published din, no. So if possible, as much as possible, we publish in high impact journals, no, because they will be counted in our QS ranking. Another one is the intellectual capital index, which is a measurement, no, of a country or a company's business value. Now, when we say business value, what comes into our mind is tawag nito parang industries, no, sa industries. But in the current trends, no, sa pag-measure ng intellectual capital index, knowledge-based na siya, no? Knowledge-based. The amount of knowledge, okay? The amount of knowledge generated by a particular country or a particular company or institution will matter in the intellectual capital index. That is why we have to we have to make it our goal to publish in high impact journals. Okay. So when you have a research topic in mind, okay, your goal should be to publish. All right. I know that there are many participants here who are still undergraduate students. Some are graduate students. All right. Kahit undergraduate, no, student ka pa, kahit college student ka pa, when you conceptualize your research, your goal should be to publish. Okay? Yan na kasi ang trend natin ngayon. Hindi na natin iniisip na maka-hardbound lang. And then the hardbound, sometimes, no, not only sometimes, but oftentimes, undergraduate or masters or PhD dissertations, no, yung na-bind na, are just there, no, in the bookshelves of our libraries, of our college libraries. Then walang nakakabasa. All right? That is why we should start making this our goal, to publish kahit undergrad pa. From the beginning, no, from the conceptualization of each topic, dapat nasa isip mo na that your goal is for this paper to get published. Okay? So when you have a research topic in mind, determine the science of the topic. Siyempre, we do that all the time. No? Pag may topic ka, kailangan pagstudihan mo muna. And then you have to, again, going back to the previous slide, as I said, the quality of research begins with a list of references. So what you will do is to go to SciMago, ayan, no, SciMagoJR.com, to search for ranked journals in the discipline. Okay? Kasi po, ang mga international journals have rankings. All right? May rankings din yan sila in terms of impact factor. Yung tinatawag nating impact factor. So one of the things that determines the impact factor of a journal is citations. So you have to go to SciMago, search for ranked journals in the discipline, so that you can also update yourselves about the discussions, the recent discussions about the topic that you're interested in. Okay? And then you also have to know yourself. You have to evaluate yourself. Are you a researcher that has no publication, or with publication but not online, or with online publication but not peer-reviewed, yung tinatawag nating gray literature, publications that are not peer-reviewed? Kasi nadidetermine natin ang quality ng isang journal if it is peer-reviewed. No? What do we mean by peer review? Peer review meaning your paper, before it gets published, will still undergo evaluation, by reviewers from different countries, from different universities. Okay. And then, are you someone with peer-reviewed publications but low impact? Okay. Or with medium impact, peer-reviewed publication, or with high impact peer-reviewed publication. So, siguro marami sa atin dito, siguro from the start, no publication hanggang siguro dito sa may second to the last, okay? You have to identify, anong level ka dyan, so that you will know how to what to do, okay? How to go about conducting your research and looking for references. Pero again, kahit wala ka pang publication, kahit wala ka pang experience in publishing papers in international journals, you have to make sure that your references are as inclusive, as possible. References that will include high impact journals. Okay. And then another standard para ma-publish ka internationally, so that your paper will be accepted, will have high percentage of acceptance, is multinational co-authorship. Okay. Of course, this is not applicable sa mga students pa. Okay. So this is for mga professionals na, or those who are already in the academe. So multinational co-authorship is the trend now. Okay. So this is opposite of opposite to sole authorship trend. Na yung ako lang dapat ang mag-author ng paper ko, para sa akin lang ang recognition. But in reality, multinational co-authorship, actually has a greater possibility of acceptance. So articles authored by different nationalities get preferred since these offer country insights. So if you find papers published in international journals na marami ang authors, no? Marami silang authors, and then the title reflects that the topic compares countries, no? 2 or more countries. Ayan, no, that has tawag nito, high possibility of acceptance. So since it is also a trend now in universities na mag-conduct ng mga in-house reviews, no? In-house reviews are actually good platforms, no, or opportunities for your paper to be evaluated, no? Pero in-house muna within the college or within the institution muna. That is why sa in-house review pa lang, the journals kung saan ka mag-publish should be identified already so that you have a goal, no? You have a direction and you also have a motivation para gandahan pa na yung paper mo. Okay? And this also calls for the conduct of interdisciplinary researches. So aside from multiple authors, dapat interdisciplinary din daw, no, ang researches na kinakandak natin. This means that many researches coming from various disciplines, no, coming from different fields of specialization, come together, no, to conduct a research. Ayan, no? Maganda din ang impact niyan sa mga international journals. All right. So next, another standard is expert consultants involvement. Okay, actually this is quite interesting. Sometimes, no, it's difficult to it's difficult to look for references, diba? Much more talking to the authors of your references. This standard actually encourages us, no, to talk to experts. It tells us to be brave, brave enough to send an email to the authors that we see in our references. Okay, send an email, no, to the experts in the topic that you are interested to study. Ayan. So studies which have been reviewed by experts in particular areas and recognized, no, in the acknowledgements section gives higher attention. During our workshop, no, in Cebu, our speaker required us, no, to send an email to one of the experts in our field of specialization. So in my case, sa education, no? Sa linguistics, language studies. Mag-send ng email sa expert na yon, no? Telling that expert, telling that author that you have been following him or her, no? You have been reading his or her publications, okay? And that you are interested to learn more from him or her. So if the expert or the author replies to you, and then the next thing you will do is to tell him or her if that expert can help you in reviewing your paper, okay, before publishing or before submitting it for international for publication in international journals. Okay, so this is quite parang awkward, no? Kasi nga, wow, sino ba ako na to talk to the expert? But that is the trend, okay? That is supposed to be the practice. In the academe, we are all open-minded and we are all prepared to learn, no? To learn new things from experts. Saan pa tayo pala mag-learn, di ba? So, aside from nakatipid ka pa ng pamasahe to attend international conferences, kasi syempre may conference, tapos yung expert na yun pupunta doon. Ang problema, the conference will be held in another country like Singapore. So it will save you time, energy, and resources kasi nakausap mo na yung expert. Okay? And if your paper gets published, you have to put those experts na kinontak mo na nag-help sa'yo to review your paper in the acknowledgements. Okay, ilagay natin sa acknowledgements. All right, next. Reference authors from high impact journals. As I said earlier, the references will tell the quality of your paper. So you have to access publications in high impact journals, okay, and include them in your references. So you have to cite them. Kasi aside from helping yourself get published, and you will also help the journals to have to gain higher impact factor. Okay, so utilizing authors from Web of Science and Scopus Index journals in the references boosts impact factor and author citation. Okay. Next, new discoveries are, of course, non-negotiable. No? Kapag nag-publish ka ng paper and that paper of yours has a new contribution, okay, has novelty, tinatawag nating novelty, something new is in your paper. So it will really have an edge for acceptance. Second, ayan, articles in high impact journals. Itong kasi, high impact journals employ or adopt rigorous peer review process. Okay? That is why it is advisable that you submit papers in high impact journals because sabihin na nating may mga standards na hindi mo na meet, okay? But the point there is you are willing to learn from your reviewers. So I experienced this one, right? I submitted a paper in a high impact journal, ISI yata yun siya or Scopus. I submitted it and then syempre rejected yung paper. I-reject yung paper. Kasi there are things that I need to polish pa daw. So I was not discouraged. I was even encouraged to improve my paper, diba? So reviewers in high impact journals are more keen in reviewing papers slated in high impact journals. Kasi nga high impact sila, so they will ensure that only quality papers are published in their journals. So it would be much better if we submit papers in high impact journals para din learning opportunity natin. Okay? Next, articles with utilization and transformative value. Okay, not all papers are theoretical, di ba? Hindi lahat ng papers theoretical. Ibig sabihin nun, when we say theoretical, the paper only aims to prove a certain theory. Okay? But more so, some papers have utilization purposes, have a utilization component. Okay? So if you have a new information in your research paper that can be used for improving a certain practice, or it can be used to transform a certain problem, solve a certain issue, it will really have an edge for acceptance. And another thing, what makes it more important that our research papers have potential for utilization is that it will help boost the chances of our college or our department for accreditation. Kasi part of the accreditation requirements is yung evidences of research utilization. So later we will discuss that in detail. Okay. Other standard is high citation potential. If your paper is interesting, okay, if the topic of your research is interesting and it is up to date, and it is it is going along with the trends in the discussions regarding that topic, there is a high citation potential of your paper. Ipapublish siya ng journal because there is a greater possibility that your paper will be cited. Because again, updated ka, up to date ka. You keep yourself abreast sa discussions, ongoing discussions about that topic. So articles that could be cited by current world influencers get the edge. Okay. And finally, credibility of funders. All right, ito. This is important, no? Especially for those who are already in the academe or yung mga practitioners na nasa academe na may organization na sila. And mag-submit ng research proposal sa mga funding agencies like DOST, Commission on Higher Education, depending on the interest of the funding agency. So meron tayong government and non-government organizations that offer funds for researches. So if your funder, a reputable funder, and malalaman ng mga publications yan, ng mga journals, editors of journals, kasi you will acknowledge your funder acknowledgement na part ng paper. So they will know that. If a research paper is funded, there is a greater possibility na ma-accept siya for publication in high impact journals. Kasi nga, bakit gi-fund? That's the question there. No? Why is your research funded? Because it is valuable, it is significant, or it has a potential for utilization. Okay, so those are the standards for standards adopted by high impact journals na magagamit natin as framework for determining the quality of our paper. Let's proceed to the next topic, the anatomy of well-written publishable papers. So what is in a well-written publishable paper? Okay, so here are the parts. Actually, some journals give the author the chance to format your paper in your own way, depending sa anong gusto mo. So we have here the sections, title, author, abstract, and then keywords under the abstract. And then the body has the following parts, the introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusions. Yung iba naman, sinaseparate nila yung literature review. There is an additional part after introduction, and that is literature review. However, some journals don't require literature review because the literature review can be integrated in the introduction part. Okay, so let's proceed to the title. So the title, syempre, is the identifier of your paper. So since it's an identifier of your paper, it should reflect the article's content clearly and precisely. Remember that research papers are expository. They are informative. They are not literary. Hindi po sila literary. So titles must be direct to the point, straightforward, expository, informative, hindi suggestive. Unlike titles of movies, novels, poems, or short stories, suggestive lang sila. Sa research paper, kailangan direct to the point, not suggestive. Automatic, makikita doon sa title yung content ng paper mo. So the title enables the reader to decide whether they want to read the article. So it's a decision maker, ang title. Babasahin ba ng mga readers ang papel mo sa title pa lang? So the title is the main advertisement for the article, and a great title will entice the audience to read on. So may mga titles na interesting talaga basahin because it is well crafted. Although simple lang, catchy, and specific, okay? But there is still that element of curiosity. Readers become curious sa title pa lang ng paper mo. That is why we have to do away with the traditional way of giving titles to our research papers. So we omit unnecessary words like a study of, no, investigations of, or observations on, no? Or a quantitative study on the blah blah blah. No, parang walang masyadong tawag nito, yung tinatawag nating factor, no, yung parang paano ba parang tatawagin niya? Parang boom, no, the boom factor. Okay? So hindi siya ganun ka-enticing. So we have to improve, no, our title. Okay? So in giving titles to our research papers, we should avoid, no, abbreviations. Abbreviations kasi are not reader friendly, especially if ang nagbabasa ay hindi naman expert in your field, all right? So you have to make your research paper accessible, no, for all audiences. Ayan. So ang abbreviations, spell out natin yan. Jargons, no, kung pwede, no, i-simplify natin yung mga jargons. Kasi jargons are mga context, kasi field specific terminologies na yung nasa field lang yan ang makakaintindi. And a title, no, most importantly, should be a working title. Anong ibig sabihin ng working title? It can still be improved, no? Hindi yung masyado tayong obsessed, no, in our titles, okay? Na hindi natin kino-consider that the study may still change, no, along the way. Kasi pwede kasing ma-change pa yung study mo. Pwedeng may part doon na kailangan i-omit nung nag-conduct ka na ng study mo. And then, ang problema, ang title mo fix na, di ba? Do not be too faithful, no, to your title. The title is always a working title. So that is why the suggestion is we write the title after finalizing the study. Pag tapos na yung study, saka nagagawa ng title na final. Okay? Yung iba nga, during the final defense na ginawa ang title. Okay? Doon na gi-finalize. Alright? Kasi the title should reflect your study. Diba? So, another thing that you can do to improve your title is to use the scope and result as title. Okay? How do we do that? If in your study you found that there is a significant relationship between two variables, let's say socioeconomic status and academic performance, which meron naman talaga, no? Or let's say sa online learning, no? Asynchronous versus synchronous classes, okay? And their effect on students' academic performance. You found that synchronous classes are more effective than asynchronous classes. So that particular finding can also be your title. Ayan, no? Synchronous classes, okay? Or synchronous learning setup, no? An effective blah blah blah. Ayan, no? So pwedeng ganun ang title mo. Yung result mismo ng study mo ang magiging title. Okay. Next. So, effective titles, no, identify the main issue of the manuscript. So, nasabi na natin ito kanina, no? Begin with the subject of the manuscript, accurate and ambiguous, specific and complete, as short and as informative as possible, and finally, enticing and interesting. Okay. Let's proceed to the next part, the author's part. Okay. So, sa author na part, dito natin ililista, no, who the authors are in this particular paper. So listing of authors should only include those, number one, who have made an intellectual contribution to the research. You do not put an author that who has no contribution. Pangalawa, who will take public responsibility for the data and conclusions. Kasi nga, part siya doon sa writing process, sa pag-conduct ng research. So the author should be willing to take responsibility, no, sa data at sa conclusions na ginawa niya sa paper. And finally, those who have approved the final version of the manuscript. So pinag-usapan ninyong mga authors, no, kung ito na ba talaga ang final version. And most importantly, the authors listed, no, should have ito tinatawag nating ORCID ID. Ito may samples akong ibibigay dito. So, author should have an ORCID ID, Scopus author ID kung sa Scopus ka nag-publish, and or researcher ID for Web of Science or yung tinatawag natin Thomson Reuters ID. Okay? So, bakit kailangan may ID? Because these IDs are your identities. No? These are your profiles. In the research community, you will be a research as a profile, no, to your research outputs. So let me show you an example. So this is my profile in the researchgate.net. Ayan, so my about me sa overview, no, ayan, may mga tabs tayo dito, like overview, research, experience, stats, scores, and then following. Sino yung mga nag-follow sa'yo. So para din itong Facebook, no, you have followers. And you can also communicate with your followers. Okay? So you have may profile ka dyan, discipline, skills, and then the researchgate.net account will show you your stats, no? Yung mga achievements mo, like total research interest, no? Based on the number of reads, no? At sino yung mga nag-open ang profile mo. So makikita dyan yung research interest, no? Score mo. And then your number of citations, and then sino-sino yung mga nag-recommend ng papel mo sa mga publications mo kasi may recommendation siya na option. So if a particular researcher found your paper interesting, i-recommend niya. Ayan. And then the number of reads na nakuha mo sa papers mo. Ayan. And then sa gilid naman you can see itong mga followings. Applications. Kung nakikita ninyo sa baba ng pangalan, no? Sa baba ng pangalan merong number, yung 00000032419. That is actually my ORCID ID number, no? Kasi ang ORCID ID magagamit din siya sa ibang accounts mo like Semantic Scholar, ResearchGate, and others. Okay? So this is my Google Scholar profile, no? So it will show your published papers na nasa account mo, and then the number of citations you have dito sa gilid, ayan, citations, and then your co-authors sa baba, makikita mo din. Okay. So, this is, no, finally, itong ORCID. No? So, orcid.org, dali lang siya, gawa ka ng account doon, and then you can upload, no, your papers there. Ayan. So, yung ORCID ID mo, okay, yung number na sa baba, you will include that, no, in the paper na ipapublish mo. So, after your name, so for example, I'm the author, Jeric C. Alico, English Department, CSSH, Mindanao State University, Marawi City, Philippines. And then, para ma-access ka ng mga interested researchers or readers. Okay? Next part of the paper is the keyword list. No? So after the abstract, you include a list of keywords. Okay? Bakit kailangan niyang keyword list? That's the question. So a list of important words that reflect the research in addition to those already used in the title. Bakit kailangan ang keyword list? Because pag ma-publish na yung paper mo sa international journals, when a researcher types, no, keywords sa, let's say, sa Google Scholar, magsa-search, or sa google.com, no? magta-type ng keywords na para maghanap din siya ng references niya. Ngayon, if yung words no na gi-type niya doon sa Google ay nasa keyword list ng paper mo, then mag-appear yung paper mo sa results. That's how important keyword list is. Okay? Kasi it will increase the likelihood of your article being found by other researchers. Okay? That is why kailangan yung keyword list mo should capture the main concepts of your paper. So aside from those keywords na nakikita sa title mo, dagdagan mo pa. So you can include your methodology na ginamit. Let's say mixed methods research. Ayan, nilagay mo siya kasi method mo. So if a researcher looks for related literature or studies, maaaring mag-appear yung paper mo, di ba? Kasi yung research ng researcher sa Google or any research database nasa keyword list ng paper mo. Okay? So that's very important sa indexing. Sa pag-index ng papel mo. Paano ma-access na yung paper. Alright? Next part is the abstract. So the abstract, of course, is the summary of your paper. So summarize the problem or study objective, the method, the results, and the conclusions of your research. So ang abstract, syempre short lang talaga yan siya. Some require only 150 words, some naman 200, some 250, or 300. But you have to make sure that in your abstract, with 200 to 350 words only, should capture every part of the paper. So anong gagawin mo? So there must be a sentence per part. So one sentence for introduction, one sentence for purpose, one sentence for method, results, and then conclusion, respectively. So do not include authors in your abstract. Huwag nang mag-cite ng authors sa abstract. If possible, if possible. And don't, kung pwede, huwag masyadong damihan yung mga numbers na nakasulat sa abstract. Alright? So, next part, okay, is the, hindi pa pala tapos. Okay. So the abstract must give sufficient detail that the reader can decide whether or not to read the whole paper. So ang title at abstract should be able to stand on their own. Kasi nga, mga decision makers yan sila. Okay? So they will be the basis kung ipagpapatuloy ba ng researcher or ng reader yung pagbabasa niya sa paper mo. So if you notice, there are some journals na title and abstract lang ang ma-access mo kasi you have to pay for the whole paper, di ba? So what made you interested in that paper? So that's the question there. Bakit mo siya inopen na paper? Because number one, the title is interesting. Related literatures. So kailangan maganda na yung title at saka abstract. So it is best not to include references, figures, or tables in the abstract kasi 200 words lang or 300. So as I said a while ago, ang title at saka abstract sa last na yan if-finalize. Okay? Next part is the introduction. So the introduction is a short one. Short lang yan kasi nga hindi naman thesis ang sinusulat mo. Alright? Article lang naman for international publication. So, meron din tayong meron din tayong technique dyan on how we can transform our thesis na maraming pages into a publishable article. Meron tayong meron tayong technique or strategy na ginagamit dyan. And I can share that with you later. Okay? So it should provide context and background but should not be a history lesson. Kasi nga, introduction, short lang siya, do not discuss everything. Okay? Only the important ones. So summarize your readings. No? Ang importante doon is you can give the readers a background of your study. Okay? And then you have to state clearly the problem being investigated. So kung sa thesis pa, your introduction is your chapter 1. Imagine the chapter 1, na maraming parts yun. But the chapter 1 will be summarized into a short introduction, no? Para sa publishable paper mo. So, i-summarize mo na doon yung problem, the background, no? That puts the problem in context. What made you decide to explore that particular problem or issue or topic, no? And the reasons for conducting the research. And then summarize relevant research to provide context. And as I said a while ago, not all journals include in their format the literature review. Some journals require authors to put the literature review in the introduction para wala nang literature review na part. Diba? Wala nang separate part for literature review. So, your writing skills here will be tested sa introduction. How good you are in summarizing, in paraphrasing, in organizing your ideas. Okay? And finally, state the questions you are answering. So, the introduction should contain the research questions. So, not necessarily in question form. It can also be in a statement form. Okay? And then, ayan, the hypothesis of your paper should also be reflected in your introduction. Ayan. And then, again, it is advisable na dapat global ang perspective. All right? So begin with a global statement with multiple global support. Okay, this is, I have to emphasize this one. A well-written research paper, okay, cites multiple authors, okay, includes as many references as possible. No? Kasi it will, again, it will determine how well-read you are as a researcher. All right? But I'm not saying na gawin mong bulky ang references. What I'm saying is that you you gather all relevant researches, all relevant literatures na makuha mo that are related to your study. Okay? Kaya nga, kung napapansin ninyo, there are articles na isang statement lang, no? Sa isang statement, ang daming authors na naka-parenthesis. Okay? So, that is one indication na nagbasa ka talaga. Diba? And you have taken into consideration various perspectives about that topic that you are researching on. Okay? So, ganyan ha. Begin with a global statement with multiple global support. And meron pa daw shock value to arrest attention. Okay? Something that will spark the interest of your readers na, magandang research ito. Maganda ang problem na ina-address niya dito. Alright? So, you can also even include the theoretical background in the introduction. The theoretical background, theoretical framework, sa chapter 1, kasali yan siya. But you may also include that in your introduction. So, summarize lahat. Next part is the method. So, the method is, of course, the how of your paper. How did you conduct your study? So, in some journals, may may distinction talaga ang pure experiment and ang hindi experiment na mga studies. So, you use materials and methods if pure experiment, especially sa pure sciences, okay? Or some applied sciences like agriculture. So sa biology, chemistry, physics, agriculture, and all other fields that apply pure experimental designs, ang ginagamit nila doon is materials and methods. Yun ang label. But for us, sa social sciences, we use research methodology. Okay. So provides readers with enough detail that they can replicate your research. Replicability is a very important quality of a well-written and well-conducted research paper. Bakit? Remember that replicability, no, of a research indicates the quality of the research. Kasi pwedeng i-verify ng iba yung findings mo. Okay? So how can they verify your findings? By looking at your methodology. Kasi clear doon ang steps that you took in order to conduct the study. So they will also do the same, no? Para ma-verify yung study mo. Okay? So it explains how you studied the problem, identify the procedures you followed, and structure these as logically as possible. So pagbago, no, ang method na ginagamit mo, you have to explain the method in detail. Well, kahit hindi naman masyadong bago. However, if your research design, or if your methodology in general research design is not valid without author support. Okay, so you must cite authors. Okay, next. All right. Is everyone still with me? Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Ayan.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Hi, sir. All right. So, ito, no? Another thing that we have to take into consideration, a very important aspect of the methodology part, is the ethics statement. Okay? Many high-impact journals require ethics statement. Okay? Which, of course, states that you conducted your study ethically, na wala kang nasaktan ng mga tao, na wala kang na-violate ng mga rights. So if your respondents or your subjects or participants are humans, no, tao, you have to get approval from the Institutional Ethics Review Board. No? And in Mindanao State University, we have the Research Ethics Committee. Okay? So starting, I think starting this semester yata yun, or next semester, all theses, undergrad, master's, dissertation, or PhD, will undergo research ethics review. The ethical aspect of your study. So sa undergrad, free siya. Sa master's and dissertation, sa PhD dissertation, meron na siyang bayad. Okay? So again, if tao ang respondents, participants, subjects, you have to get approval from the Institutional Ethics Review Board. And in the case of MSU, it will be done after the proposal defense. Okay. Next, if animals naman, no, hayop, no, ang subjects mo, you have to get approval from the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. Okay? In MSU, we also have that, no? The Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. Sa MSU, meron na tayo niyan. So sila ang nagre-review kung ethical ba ang paggamit mo ng animals. Okay? For example, yung mga rats, no? Yung mga rats sa ginagamit sa laboratories. Okay? dumadaan yan, no, sa review. Okay? Ipapadaan yan sa review. And by the way, no, FYI lang, ang mga rats pala, no, sa mga ginagamit sa experiments are cultured, no? Hindi lang yan sila basta-basta kinuha lang sa kung sa aglungga sila kinuha. Kinokontrol pala talaga yan sila, no? Yung growth nila, yung pinapakain sa kanila, kinokontrol para magamit sila for experiments. Alright? If plants naman, ako may plants pa, no? If plants, ang materials mo na gagamitin sa study, you have to get itong tinatawag natin gratuitous permit, no, from the DENR. So yung kahoy, example, mag-study ka ng kahoy, kailangan may permit ka dyan from DENR. Okay? So those are the things that we have to consider in conducting our study, no? Itong ethics review. Okay? So after having undergone the ethics review, the committee will give you a certificate na pumasa sa ethical review ang study mo. And when you submit your paper for international publication, you have to include an ethics statement in your method. Okay? And if possible, i-attach pa, no, yung certificate, okay, na binigay. All right, next. So I have some reminders lang, no, sa methodology natin. So in considering statistical tools, okay? Actually we need to collect the data first and then study the characteristics of our data before we can identify the statistical tools to be used. Okay? So sa proposal defense pa lang, no? In the proposal defense, the statistical tools should not be required. Okay? Pero if require, you can only suggest, no, kung anong statistical tools ang gagamitin mo. Kasi you have not studied your data yet. You have not collected even, no, your data. Kasi the characteristics of the data will determine the kinds of statistical tools that you will use. For example, itong normality. So you have to run a normality test, no, of your data so that you can identify if parametric statistics ba or non-parametric statistics ang gagamitin mo. So meron pang equality of variances, linearity of relationship, and other things na kailangan natin i-check muna, no, bago tayo maka-identify ng statistical tools. And we have to be wary, no, about choosing statistical tools because the wrong statistical tool will invalidate your findings. Okay? It's a very important matter to consider. All right? So again, you can only suggest statistical tools during your proposal defense. You cannot be final, no, sa statistical tools na gagamitin kasi wala ka pang data. All right? Next, syempre, you have to consult a statistician, no, someone who knows about statistics para naman mag-guide ka rin. So, in presenting your data, for example, may mean ratings, it must be accompanied with standard deviations kasi always yan sila partner. No? So, a separate seminar can be conducted regarding the statistics component of our study. Next, we have to ask permission, by the way, no, to use instruments, no, yung mga survey questionnaires, if they are not publicly accessible. If you cannot access survey questionnaires na na-prepare na ng iba, you have to ask permission from the author. Okay? And syempre, what will you do? Mag-email ka sa kanya, no, to ask permission. But if it is publicly accessible naman, no need to ask permission. But again, publicly accessible or not, you have to cite, no, the developer of the instrument. Okay, in the case of survey and itong scale, no, sa Likert scale. Next, cite sources if you combine different instruments, because there are cases where the researcher himself or herself is the one who developed, not the questionnaire, not the instrument, by studying, no, or reviewing the literatures, or by combining pre-existing instruments together. So you have to cite your sources, and you have to explain how you come up with your instrument. Okay. So next, have authorities sign a document validating the data on the population. So, di ba, nire-require kayo to conduct a preliminary survey to determine the population of the number of people, or kung tao, no? The number of people comprising your target population. Okay? So kailangan may document, no, na magsasign ang authorities, for example, school principal, no, na validated na tama, no, yung data on the population na nakuha mo sa kanila. Okay? Next, you have to use a scientific sampling design. So you have to be careful with your sampling design, no? Make sure that it is really scientific, proven siya. Like example, the use of random selection. Okay? Qualitative research, you have to explain your inclusion criteria. No? Inclusion criteria. Ano yung mga criteria na kinonsider mo in selecting your respondents or your participants or your informants in the case of interview. Okay? So in terms of questionnaires, dapat ma-quality check muna yan. Okay? So to be safe, no? Kasi some journals, actually many, I think all high impact journals require you to explain the reliability, the validity, no, of your instrument. So kailangan before you use your instrument for final data collection, you have to diagnose it if reliable ba. So meron kang pilot testing na gagawin. If valid ba, so kailangan i-review ng mga experts, okay, in that field. And then meron din tayong tinatawag na parallel forms, no? And probably a separate seminar can be conducted to explain itong instrument development process. Okay? So meron din tayong Cutter-Richardson 20 for right or wrong. Yang mga by the way instruments na isa lang ang sagot. For example, yung mga tests, multiple choice items, true or false. Yung mga isa lang ang sagot, no? Unlike sa Likert scale na walang correct answer. Okay? Kasi nga strongly agree, disagree, yun lang. So ang ginagamit natin for Likert scales like strongly agree, disagree, always, sometimes, never is the convex alpha. Actually, marami pang iba, no? But ang famous talaga, ang mostly commonly used is convex alpha. But for tests, no, na isa lang ang answer, isa lang ang correct answer, we use the Cutter-Richardson 20, no, to test kung reliable ba ang test question. Okay? Certificate from your statistician that stating that your questionnaire has been pilot tested and is found to be reliable. And sa validity din, yung mga nag-validate ng questionnaire mo, ng mga experts, they will sign a certificate, no? Declaring the validity of your instrument. Okay? Kasi pagdating doon sa paper for international publication, in the method section, you have to explain there, you have to tell the editors, the reviewers, that your paper, your instrument has undergone reliability testing and validity testing. Okay. Next, it is a crime to show the formula and sample computation in the article. So when you write your article for submission to international publication, to international journals, do not show the formula in the method section, and do not put sample computation because it's like you are telling them na ito yung ginawa ko. May sample ako dito. That's being pedagogical. Remember, you are submitting your research paper to experts. Experts will review your paper. So you don't need to tell them that this is the formula for Pearson product moment correlation coefficient. And this is a sample computation of my tawag nito, yung pag ano ko ng sampling sample size. You don't need to do that anymore. Okay? Kasi alam na nila yan. You just tell them that this is the statistical tool that I use, etc., etc. Okay? And then declare significance level, compliance with research X protocol, and then yun na nga, secure ka na. Okay. So sa presentation of your findings later, kailangan makita doon sa ano pala ito? Sa what do you call this? Sa reliability testing ng iyong instrument. So kailangan may doon, may numbers, kung ano yung value ng Cronbach's alpha at ano yung value ng Cutter-Richardson 20. Okay. Let's proceed to the next section, the results section. So in this section, you will now but expose, present the findings. So what we are expected to put in this section are tables. Ayan. So present your findings objectively and explain what was found, largely in text. What was found? Sequence. So you can do this by following your research questions. So one table for one research question. Ayan. And then another table na naman, or well, not only table, pwede may graph kasi. So based on the tables, graphs, and figures that best present your findings. So doon kung ano ang nakalagay sa table, but you do not state individually yung findings. You only focus on the most important findings. Okay? So tables and figures must be numbered. Kailangan may numbering yan, label, and should be in the sequence that you refer to them in the text. Okay? So you arrange ng maayos, and it's much better. It really is the practice that you have to answer your research questions individually. So yun ang i-present mo sa results. So there should have it should have a brief discussion, a legend, providing the reader with sufficient information to know how the data were produced. So may konting ka lang doon, may konting description doon kung paano nakuha na yung data. Okay? And then table titles are placed at the top, and then figure titles at the bottom naman. Okay? Kung figure ang ginamit mo. Right, like pictures, mga photographs. Sa baba yung label niya, hindi sa taas. But sa table, sa taas siya. So there is no need for profile data. Sa international journals, hindi na natin pinipresent yung profile ng mga respondents. We place them in the methods section to describe your respondents, your participants. Na 50% are female, doon na nilalagay sa methods, hindi na sa results. Okay? And why would you ask, why would you include in the research questions yung data, yung profile ng mga respondents mo? There's no need for that. Hindi mo na siya kailangan i-separate na table sa results. Doon na lang sa methods ilalagay. Okay? And well, syempre, for example, gagamitin mo siya sa correlation or sa pag-analyze ng correlation ng findings, doon na magagamit yung profile. But again, do not include profile data in the results. Right? Next, do not interpret your results in the results section. Kasi there is a separate section for that, and that's the discussion and conclusion section. Okay? So that's the next part. Sabihin mo lang doon anong nakalagay sa data. So we can say that it's found that The p-value is less than the level of significance level set, no? Which is 0.05, etc. So, sabihin mo lang, no, kung anong meaning doon sa number. Pero wala ka munang implications. Later na sa discussion and conclusion, sasabihin. So, ask for opinions regarding your statistical results. Okay? Remember, you are publishing a paper for international journal, no? For international journals, high impact pa. So you have to be, you need to be sure, no? Kung anong meaning ng mga statistical results mo. So it is advisable that you ask for opinions from experts, no? At lalo na sa mga may knowledge sa statistics. Okay? Next part is the discussion and conclusion. So describes what your results mean, no? Specifically in the context of what was already known about the subject of the investigation. So dito mo na sasabihin kung ano yung contribution ng study mo. What are the new things you found, no, in your study? Ano yung new contributions mo, no, sa discussion on that particular topic? So dito na makikita yung implications, no, ng findings. Okay? So present global and specific conclusions. So meron kang global insight, no, in relation to your study, and meron ka ding specific insights. Okay? So but be careful not to summarize your manuscript. Do not summarize your manuscript in the discussion section because sa abstract yan nilagay. Okay? So there are 3 layers of discussion na pwede nating gawin, no, to discuss our results. First is to highlight the data, state the highlights of your data. Ano yung pinaka-importanting findings na nakuha mo? Okay? So describe the table, no? Na itong table na ito, ang meaning nito is ganito. And then what does this imply? Ayan. What is the stakeholders' interpretation? Ano yung stakeholders' interpretation? If you look at a data, no, the implications you get, the meanings you get from your results depend on who are looking, no, or what perspective, or in what perspective are you looking at the data. For example, you are a researcher. So as a researcher, ito yung pagkatingin ko sa data. Ngayon, if you are a practitioner, if you are someone in the field, especially sa education, sa field natin, sa education, you can look at data as a theorist, no? Yung mga nag-theorize. You can look at it as a teacher. You can look at it as a student. You can look at it as a school principal. You can look at it as a curriculum developer. So the findings may have different meanings, okay? Depending on what kind of lens you are wearing, okay? So you have to take into consideration the interpretations, no, of stakeholders. So you may also consult, no, yung mga stakeholders kung paano nila nakikita itong findings na ito. And you have to include author support. So you will now cite authors that have said something about that result. So the author support may not necessarily be positive, no? Nasabihin mo doon that, ang sasabihin mo lang doon is itong author na ito sinuport yung findings ko. Not necessarily. You may also say that this finding is inconsistent or is opposite to what this author found previously. So, ang author support is pwedeng positive, pwedeng negative. Pwedeng consistent sa previous studies, pwedeng inconsistent, no, sa previous studies. Okay? So, as to tables, do not show detailed tables, only the summarized ones. Okay? Kaya nga, ang ipapakita lang natin, kasi this is not a thesis, it is an article. So you have to highlight the important findings only. Include tables that are of importance. Hindi na kailangan i-specify, isali doon yung mga details ng ibang tables. Okay? So summarize if possible. So in the discussion and conclusion part, you have to explain how the research has moved the body of scientific knowledge forward. Kasi nga, doon sa pag-interpret mo ng findings, kailangan may implications doon. And the implications will the interpretation and the implication will be your basis for defending the relevance or significance of your study, that your study has contributed something new in the scientific knowledge. Okay, so suggest further experiments and indicate whether they are underway, indicate uses and extensions if appropriate. So you can kasi parang recommendation na dito siya, no? Because you suggest to your readers that you can explore this topic in other ways. Okay, and the conclusions, this is the most important thing. Okay, conclusions now should be supported by results. Do not imply and do not generate implications that your results cannot support, di ba? Kasi sa research, we have to use logic din, di ba? We have to use logic. Hindi tinatawag nating deductive. Okay? So, my findings ay deductive method and inductive method din siya, no? So, sa deductive method, ito yung general idea mo, and then you try to sa deductive method, ito yung nasa literature. Okay? Ito yung nakalagay sa literature review mo. Ito yung theory. Ito yung concept. And then i-apply mo sa study. Ayan, specify mo na siya. No? And in the inductive method, which is the conclusion part, kasi inductive, gagawa ka ng generalization. Gagawa ka ng implications based on the findings. And logic is very important. Kung ano lang ang nakalagay sa results mo, doon ka lang mag-base sa implications and conclusions mo. Okay? Don't be like a novel writer. Hindi po kayo nagsusulat ng novel. Okay? Do not be too imaginative. All right? Based on facts po tayo always. Ayan. So in the discussion and conclusion part, you have to use specific expressions and quantitative descriptions. Do not say a higher temperature. The question is what made you say that it's a higher temperature? So you have to specify the number. So 12 degrees higher. Ayan. Okay? Use already established terms. Do not use new terminologies in the conclusion part na hindi naman na-mention sa introduction. In the previous part, sa introduction, sa methods. Do not inject, do not make use of new vocabulary na hindi mo na-define. Okay, sa previous parts. Okay, root all interpretations and speculations in facts rather than imagination. Again, hindi po tayo creative writers sa research. We are technical writers and we should base our conclusions on facts. Okay, do not imagine things na masyado nang malayo doon sa findings mo. Okay. And you also have to admit that there are some limitations in your study. Kaya meron tayong scope and limitations. So you have to discuss the errors of methodology kasi walang methodology na perfect. Okay? There is no perfect research design. All research designs have weaknesses. But meron din silang strengths. So you have to admit that there are limitations sa procedures na ginawa mo. For example, the number of respondents. So you have to admit na hindi mo nakuha lahat kasi sampling lang naman. So if there are limitations as to the conduct of the study, the methodology, i-admit mo siya. Okay? Issues on sample size, yung sabi ko kanina, the timing kasi na when you contacted your respondents, hindi sila available. Ganyan, no? So, na-limit yung na-limit yung number of samples mo. So, kailangan i-discuss niya. Ang instruments din, no? So, overall, it's the research design, no? Kibale, ang may mga loopholes pa. Again, wala pong perfect na research design. So you just have to state there na merong mga limitations. That is why you recommend that pwede ka pang mag-conduct, no? Pwede pang mag-conduct ang ibang researchers ng the same study, pero iba na ang method. Or they can address, no? The loopholes using other methodologies. Okay? Next, sa recommendations. Okay? So, syempre, recommendations should be included in the article, in the publishable article. Okay? However, sa pag-conduct mo ng study, no? And then nag-interpret ka nag-collect ka ng data, in-interpret mo yung data, the recommendations should still come from the results na nakuha mo. And the recommendations are not just, the recommendations section is not just a list of recommendations. Okay? So we have to take this, parts seriously because it has important implications as to how we conduct our researches and as to how we can improve, our we can improve our research culture. Okay? And it will also help actually sa accreditation natin. So, unang-una, every recommendation must have an implementation plan. Okay? So if hindi ka lang basta-basta mag-recommend kasi ang nangyayari is sa recommendations na part, masyadong maraming nililista doon. Ngayon, if we include an implementation plan per recommendation, we will really realize that recommendations are not just yung basta-basta ka lang naglalagay. Because kung pwede, every recommendation must have an implementation plan. Like after the study, paano i-implement yung recommendation na binigay mo, di ba? So it will ensure that your research will have a potential for utilization. Okay? Second, concerned institutions will certify that they accept the recommendations. For example, you conducted your study in a school, or in a certain division, schools division or district ba kaya, or sa isang barangay, or sa isang community, okay, or sa isang organization, company, okay. So, di ba? When you conducted your study, you sent a letter of request, di ba? Asking permission from that school or organization or company. And then, binigyan kanila ng permission, di ba? Nag-conduct ka ng study, nag-collect ka ng data sa kanila. The question is, what will they get? What will the company or the school or the organization get from your study? Di ba? So, ginamit mo lang sila, Gamitan lang, So, it's not a healthy practice, accordingly. So, the trend is, we require, hindi naman require, but we request our respondents, yung institution or yung school, to certify our recommendations that we accept your recommendation. Ayan, magpipirma talaga ng certificate that the school accepts your recommendations because it will help us, blah blah blah, etc. etc. Ayan. And then, ang mangyayari dyan is, meron siyang extension component. Ibig sabihin, your study will become an extension service. Okay? So, the recommendations you gave will now be implemented in that institution. So, it will become a partnership between you, the researcher, or the institution which you belong, and the institution na kinandakan mo ng study, yung organization or yung school. So meron kayong magiging memorandum, magiging extension service siya, memorandum of agreement will be signed between the two, especially sa mga studies na merong potential for utilization. Para ma-implement yung recommendation mo And then, pag na-implement na, i-monitor yung institution if in-implement pa talaga. And then, after the implementation, what will happen is you will give them a research utilization award. Certificate of completion ba kaya, no? To as evidence na in-implement nila yung recommendations mo. Okay? So, you should not be the only one making the recommendations. So, kailangan may author support, no? A support from your from the literature na hindi ka lang basta-basta nag-recommend ng wala lang, no? Yan lang recommend ko. So kailangan mayroong author support, no? Support from the literature. Okay? So going back no doon sa utilization. I think this should I believe this is too timely, no? Because Mindanao State University is currently preparing for accreditation. We can start na doing this. Itong research utilization, okay? So we will benefit from the researches conducted, you know? And the participants, the subjects, the institutions kung saan tayo nag-collect ng data will also benefit from us, okay? And kung makikita natin doon sa area 5 no ng accreditation, which is research, may nakalagay doon na evidences of research the recommendations. Now let's proceed to the acknowledgements. So the acknowledgements, this is the second to the last part actually. But aside from the acknowledgements, meron pa kasi iba. Itong tinatawag natin conflict of interest. No? Kung meron bang conflict of interest na na-encounter mo or involved na sa study na kinandak mo. So sa acknowledgements na part, of course, you acknowledge people who helped you, like funders, yung nag-fund ng research mo, the contributors, no? And the suppliers of materials na free of charge. Kasi you will only acknowledge someone na malaki yung contribution sa study mo, di ba? And then, ang ginagawa ng iba, if final na ang paper for publication, like na-accept na siya for publication, nilalagay din sa acknowledgements yung reviewers, yung mga nag-review ng paper mo, yung mga nagbigay ng comments para ma-improve yung paper. Okay. So you have to disclose any financial or other substantive conflict of interest, yung sabi ko sa inyo kanina, that might be seen to influence the results or interpretation of their research. Like for example, nag-conduct ka ng research, tapos ang funder is isang pharmaceutical company, no? Drugs, medicine, ganyan. Mga gamot, mga pharmaceutical company ang nag-fund. Tapos ang pinakonduct sa iyo na study is an experiment testing the effectiveness of the drugs ng pharmaceutical company na yon. Okay? So imagine niyo yung situation. Ang funder ng research ay may possibility na may say siya sa results ng study mo. Di ba? Kasi baka pwedeng i-manipulate yung findings. Kasi nga, ang products ng pharmaceutical company na yun, ang tinest mo kung effective ba. Di ba? So baka may manipulation na mangyayari. So kailangan i-declare mo kung may mga conflict of interest ba or wala. Or kung may mga nag-influence ba sa results and interpretation ng study mo. Okay? So this is applicable sa mga researchers na may mga funders. Okay. Next is the references part, the last part of the paper. So you have to include all references cited in your article. And the references kasi is format ng APA. So ang bibliography is hindi APA yan siya. That's the old style. So not the same with bibliography kasi sa bibliography daw nilalagay yung ibang yung ibang mga sources kahit hindi naman na cite. Okay? So ang nilalagay natin sa references section are those references cited in your article. Okay? And you do not group references, by the way. You have to arrange them in alphabetical order, not by category, like books, no? One category, published papers, one category, online sources, one category. Hindi pwede yon. Ang ginagawa natin is mix na lahat and then arrange them alphabetically. So you have to use the required format. No? Oftentimes, the APA format. Ngayon is 7th edition na, no? 7th edition na ang APA. And if you have online sources, sometimes the URL is too long. Ang haba-haba, no? Parang isang paragraph. So what you will do is you shorten it. Meron namang URL shortener, no? Ma-search niyo lang yan sa Google. So URL shortener, ilagay niyo doon yung URL para ma-shorten. Para hindi it will not take much space doon sa paper. Okay? So that is the anatomy of a well-written, publishable paper. Now let's proceed to the next topic, the technologies as aid in writing scientific papers. So there are digital tools and databases that we can use so that we can to improve to improve the process of writing scientific papers. Kasi mapapabilis, mapapadali, at mas may improve pa ang quality ng paper using these technologies. So, going back doon sa mga accounts na sinabi ko, no, yung mga what do you call this? Mga websites like the ORCID, no? So, set up an ORCID account on www.orcid.org, update your profile, and then follow people, no? Access the profiles of researchers in your field. And then we also have Google Scholar. Okay, so Google Scholar is of course very useful siya na website, database of published books and research papers. Not only research papers and books, meron din doon mga law, mga law related na mga articles din. Okay? So search for topics in Google Scholar, generate all citations of articles. So doon sa Google Scholar, ang makikita natin sa every article na, wait lang ha, I think I need to show these to you. Okay, ipapakita ko sa inyo ito. Okay. Okay, so let's access Google Scholar. Can you see the screen? Nakikita niyo pa ang nakikita niyo po ba ang screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So, ito. So may article dito. Ayan. I will click, mag-search na lang tayo. So I will search, let's say for example, language anxiety. Language anxiety. So dito sa sa results, makikita natin sa baba na may star. Star means i-save yung paper. And then itong quote, itong quotation mark is the cite option. Ibig sabihin, pag i-click natin yan siya, plus yung different formats ng references. So MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver. Ang gagawin mo dito is i-copy mo lang. Ayan. So copy, Control C, and then paste doon sa references mo. Okay? So nasaan yan? Sa itong quotation mark ito. Ayan. Ayan. Okay? So I hope nakuha ninyo 'yon, no? All right. So let's proceed.
Sir Jeric,
Yes, ma'am.
pwede na tayo mag-open forum.
Oh, yeah, pwede, ma'am.
Kasi hanggang 3:30 lang tayo.
Sige, go. So I can entertain questions na if you have questions. Okay, tingnan natin yung chat. I don't see questions. If you have questions, you can raise them now para ma-address natin. Okay, so I will, while waiting for the questions, I will proceed na lang sa ibang mga mga tools. So aside from Google Scholar, we have the Publish or Perish, harzing.com, and then we also have the Mendeley. Nagagamit din natin ito sa pag-access ng papers and for referencing. Automatic din itong Mendeley. Automatic siya nalalagay sa references. Hindi mo na kailangan i-type isa-isa yung references. Then we also have, of course, plagiarism checkers. So we have Turnitin, plagiarism checker yung sa Grammarly, Authenticate, Qtext, plagiarism checker, and FlagScan. So journals, international journals use plagiarism softwares kasi they will not tolerate plagiarism. Okay. Next, proofreading tools din. This is at your level na, no? Para naman para mas ma-improve pa yung language, you can use Grammarly, no? Merong nito, may trial version. I'm using it. And then pwede ding my pro version din ito. So you can you need to pay, no? Para ma-access mo yung mga advanced features. Meron din tayong tinatawag na language tool. So itong mga na ito, and then of course, no, sa Microsoft Word, grammar and style checker, punta kayo sa file, sa baba may options, and then doon kayo sa proofing. Sa proofing na option nandoon, you can set you can set it up na i-check na yung grammar and style. And then Zotero, para din itong Mendeley, no? Na automatic maka-access ka ng papers and then nalalagay siya sa saan ito?
Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insights with us. Indeed, it was an overwhelming presentation and very informative as well. At this moment, we are open for any questions, suggestion, and clarification coming from the participants. You may comment it down in our comment box or chat box. Your questions na lang sa FB page ng YRC Club so that we can send it to Sir Jeric at the same time, masagutan na rin. So,
do you have questions? If may if wala pang questions, we can i-run through ko lang yung yung there are many reasons, no? Actually, tatlo, no? Editorial, technical, and other reasons unrelated to quality. And rejection rate, no, is actually a criterion, no? Kung gaano ka quality yung isang journal. Ang sabi nga dito, 97%, no, ang rejection rate ng mga high impact journals. For example, itong journal na Cell, okay? Imagine 100 papers, out of 100 papers submitted, tatlo lang dyan, more or less, ang mapublish. Okay? So that's how strict they are, no? In observing their standards. Okay? So nare-reject ang mga papers because number one, di nag-follow ang author sa guidelines. Poor ang writing and grammar, na mismatch yung paper mo sa journal. Sinubmit mo yung paper mo sa isang journal na hindi naman in line sa topic. Okay? Next, lack of originality, novelty, and significance. Yung sabi ko kanina na walang new contributions. Next is technical reasons like unclear hypothesis, flawed methodology, mali yung methodology, like ang statistical tools, mali din. So, pwedeng maging rason yun. Suboptimal or over-interpretation of results. No? Inaccurate conclusions, not supported by data. So, nag-conclude ka na hindi naman nakikita doon sa data. And then, ang ethics, no, ethical standards are violated. Like yung wala kang permission, wala kang certificate, no, of certificate from the Research Ethics Committee, and then may mga multiple submissions kasi pag nag-submit ka ng paper for international publication, isang journal lang dapat. Hindi mo pwedeng isubmit ang isang paper sa iba-ibang journals, isabay mong isubmit na isang paper lang yun, bawal yun siya. No? Isang paper mo, isang journal lang. Pag nag-decide na yung journal, saka mo na pwede isubmit sa iba kung na-reject siya. Okay? Hindi pwedeng ipagsabay na isubmit mo yung isang paper sa iba-ibang journals, bawal yun. Okay? Plagiarism, fake affiliation, ghost authorship, gift authorship, no? Scientific research kasi is built on a foundation of trust and dapat kinakandak ang researches with honesty. Okay? And then failure to revise and resubmit after peer review. And then space constraints. Kasi may mga journals na limited yung space. So na-reject ka kasi wala ng space sa final paper. So baka sa next issue ka na lang. And then quality and experience of peer reviewers may also affect, no? Kasi may mga peer reviewers na baka masyado din silang strict, no? So nare-reject yung paper. Kasi nakakapag-decide ang reviewers if i-accept ba yung paper mo o hindi. So, ayan, volume of submissions, journal editor. Okay. So that is all, no, for my lecture. Okay, so let's proceed to the open forum. Okay.
Sir Jerry. So,
yes, ma'am.
Sir, yung karamihan ata ng participants are undergraduates.
Mm-mm.
So, parang wala pa sila dun sa stage ng publication. So, ano ang mas relevant sa kanila sa lahat ng i-present mo? Para doon na lang sila mag...
Yeah, so as I said kanina, no, may mga parts doon na pwede nating simulan, no, sa pag-conduct ng ating undergraduate thesis. Kasi again, if possible, before we conduct our thesis, no, we should condition our mind na after nito is mapublish talaga dapat. So, most of my discussions, no, regarding doon sa pag-conduct ng study, sa pagsulat ng paper, are all relevant, no, sa pag-conduct and pagsusulat ng inyong undergraduate thesis. Okay? Kasi again, ang pupuntahan niyan is publication. So dapat undergraduate thesis pa lang, nag-prepare na tayo for that. Okay? So from the standards, no? From the standards of high impact journals, yung sa scope, no? If possible, ayusin na natin, no? Yung scope ng study natin and how we defend the relevance of our paper kahit local lang siya na study, no? Kasi wala naman sigurong makakandak dito ng study na ASEAN region ang ang scope, okay? So next is ang multiple co-authorships, hindi applicable yan, no? Kasi undergrad pa naman. Tsaka yung partner mo lang din ang kasama mo sa authors. Pero itong expert consultants involvement, no? If possible, we contact, we build connections with with the experts in our field. Kasi nakaka-help yan sila, no? They can give you pieces of advice as to how you conduct your undergraduate thesis. And then your references, no? Again, make it as inclusive as possible para hindi ka na mahirapan mag-revise kasi hindi mo ginawa, no? Hindi ka nag-prepare sa undergraduate thesis mo tapos naisip mo na i-present ko kaya to or i-publish ko kaya to. So saka ka pa magre-revise, no? So additional trabaho. So sa undergraduate thesis mo pa lang, hinahanda mo na ang self mo, no? You are already treading the path towards publishing, no? Your undergraduate thesis. So, ang references dapat inclusive, international ang scope. And then yung topic, no, na ikakanda yung topic ng study ninyo, dapat meron ka doong new discoveries, no? Merong bagong contribution, okay? And you can determine that by reviewing, no, your literature. Okay? Para makita mo doon saan ka papasok. What is, identify the research gap, okay, sa literature so that you will know where to fill, what to fill in, okay? So ano yung gap doon ka mag-fill in. Ayan. So kailangan it takes time din talaga, no, to review literature and it has kailangan i-condition mo din yung mind mo, i-prepare mo yung sarili mo that and accept the fact that research is not an easy task to do. Okay? And then ayan, ang study kailangan may potential for utilization din. Okay? And then kasi nga pag mag-review ka ng literature, you have to identify the research gap, di ba? Kasi pag na-identify mo yung research gap, makikita yung relevance ng paper mo. So pag na-publish mo siya, it will be citable, di ba? Kasi you are able to contribute to the discussions, to the debates. Okay? Okay, and doon sa title, paggawa ng title, ayan, no? Magagamit niyo yan sa undergraduate thesis niyo, sa abstract, no, writing, and then doon pala sa mga accounts na sinabi ko like ResearchGate, Google Scholar, academia.edu, no? ORCID, if possible, gumawa na kayo ng accounts ninyo para maka-follow kayo ng mga researchers. Okay? Sa Google Scholar, for example, you can follow experts in your field. So, ma-notify ka ng Google Scholar kung may bagong publication yung author na pina-follow mo. Okay? So, magagamit mo sa references mo. Okay? You can make use of them as your sources. And then sa pagsulat ng introduction, no? sa pagsusulat ng method ng chapter 3 ninyo. Okay? And then may mga na-mention din ako ng mga pieces of advice as to how you can defend your proposal, di ba? And then sa pagsusulat ng chapter 4 sa results, presentation of findings, and then how to interpret no, your data, di ba? And then sa paggawa ng recommendations and how to conclude, di ba? Nakalagay na discuss na din natin yan siya. And then most especially yung research utilization na part. If possible, no, we take that seriously para ang pag-conduct natin ng research ay hindi lang for academic purposes. Hindi lang pang compliance lang, no? So meron ka ding goal to contribute to society, to institutions, to people using your study. And then yun pala, no, yung mga sabi ko sa inyong technological tools like Mendeley, no, kung pwede i-access niyo siya. Mendeley, Zotero, at yung mga plagiarism checkers, no. Ang ano pala, ang MSU is now on the process of purchasing Turnitin. Okay? Yung plagiarism checker na Turnitin, mabibili po ang MSU. And magagamit po natin yun siya in the future. Okay. So far, yun lang naman po, no, yung mga important, mga salient points na pwede nating magamit, no, sa ating undergraduate thesis. Okay, there's a question here. Sir, how to find a suitable journal to publish the research? So going back dun sa advice, go to SciMago. No? SciMago, SciMagoJR.com. No? Go to SciMago. Ayan. Saan yun? Para makita mo kung ano yung mga journals na pwede mong publishan. And you have to, you have to study din. No? You have to review. By the way, for Scopus, no, and Scopus and Web of Science, yung tinatawag nating ISI, meron pala silang feature sa website nila, no, sa Elsevier. Meron silang elsevier.com, no? Meron silang feature doon na ilalagay mo yung title ng study mo, ilalagay mo yung keywords, and then ilalagay mo din yung abstract. Okay, I will show you. I will show it to you, ha? I will show it. Share screen tayo. Share. So this is what we call the journal finder. Ang tawag sa kanya. Journal finder. Wait lang. Ayan. Ayan. Journal. Asan na yung journal finder? Okay, sa Elsevier Journal Finder. Okay, so you open the website. Ayan, find journals. Okay. All right. So, pag i-open mo yan, makikita mo dito na sana ba? Medyo matagal, no? So you can input your title, your keywords, and then your abstract, and then enter ang website na ang magbibigay sa iyo ng mga list of journals kung saan ka pwede mag-publish. Okay. All right. Okay, any more question?
Sir?
Yes.
From galing po sa RC Akik Senior High School Chemistry Faculty, si Johay Bear Sarip. Nagtatanong po siya, sir, kung pwede po siyang humingi ng PowerPoint, copy ng PowerPoint.
Yes, I can share the PowerPoint. Ang PDF, file.
So, yun lang
I
po,
can
sir.
share. Okay.
And so,
what else? May question pa yung iba? I think walang nagsisend ng question sa chat box.
So, participants, if ayaw niyong magtanong ngayon.
Okay, so before before we dismiss na lang, before we end the webinar, ito po yung journal finder ng Elsevier. So, you put your paper title here, dito ilagay niyo, and then your abstract, and then your keywords. Okay, i-ano natin ha, mag-sample lang tayo ng konti para before we dismiss. Okay, okay. So, lagyan ko ng title. Title. And then, yung abstract. And then, yung keywords. Ayan. And then, field of research. Ayan. Ang field of research is humanities. Ayan. And then, may ano pa, may, ayan. So, find journals. Pag-click mo yan, maglilista, no, ang journal finder ng mga journals na fit. Ayan, fit sa paper mo. So, ayan, nakalagay dito is Journal of Pragmatics. So, pwede daw ako dyan mag-publish. Kung makikita ninyo, meron ding acceptance rate. Ayan, 28% daw ang acceptance rate ng paper ko sa journal nila. Tapos social science and medicine, political geography. So ilang journals ang lumabas? 40 journals daw ang nag-match sa paper ko. So you can make use of this. No, para maka-select ka kung anong journal ang papublishan. So yun lang naman. Any more questions?
So I guess wala na pong questions. Again, kung may mga gusto man kayong itanong, you can send it sa page, FB page ng YRC Club para masend namin kay sir at the same time masagutan na rin. And at this point, allow me to present the e-certificate of recognition for our resource speaker, Mr. Jerick C. Alico. And now we will be having our photo opportunity with our resource speaker. Please turn on your cameras as we will do a photo opportunity. Turn on your cameras as we will do a photo opportunity.
You can open your camera for the photo op. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sir Jerick.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me here.
Once again, thank you everyone for your virtual presence. And sir, thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
we hope that you learned something and found this webinar as informative and useful as you deal in your research journey. And kindly fill out the evaluation form posted in the comment section for you to claim your e-certificate. And please always remember that despite of the pandemic that we are in today, we will survive as one. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless. Once again, I am Fatima Haimadiso, your Master of Ceremony.